To jest, którą Justyna Agnieszka Szewali. Matching up and matching down. First, when you approach a person, you need to always establish that person's actual emotional and physical state. Start with an evaluation from 1 to 10, 10 being worst pain in that person's life, in remembering such as point of reference in own, and 1 being the least pain in your life, and define as such all suffering, dividing emotions simply into and physical states into positive and negative. Add all of negative emotions and physical states, including anger, hatred, and described in prior video, instinct to harm, and gloat from that, evil pursuit of joy or sex with intent or from harm of others, and define a source as suffering in that person. And take that, assimilate that as information. In non-judgment, assume in self-finding point of reference when you rejoiced from somebody's suffering, who that was. Usually that was a person from childhood to late years that has done something wrong to you or is being doing such. And that is what the point of reference has to be in establishing it, and assume that it is a non-faultful in that relationship. You are evaluating a person, and practice that first with colleagues or with persons who are you consider equal or comfortable to interact, or random strangers. When you evaluate such, you need to remember what you have to have in mind first is assumption that that person wants to be source of good emotions and impressions and praises. All of us are as such. So person, that is called good intention. Person is well motivated. That's one. And second one, so all of harm intended or pain is in intent of resolution, and pain that results in crying or pursuit of remediation, when you feel rational about it, you have no empathy regardless of who you are, especially if you're a medical practitioner. It is from own pain index. So when you see person who cries, asks for help in pain, or a person who in cry expresses both suffering and pain, if you only can have a rational approach without empathy, analyze always, is that enough? And so you need to ask, am I a source of it? And 2, am I of that pain? And am I able in such cold state or in rejoicing of seeing that person suffering, no matter who that is, what that person has done, part of the group or alone? And can I, as an emotional state and physical state, immediately alleviate that person's suffering and in incapacity having empathy? If you do not have empathy and you do not read that hatred, sometimes with underlying pain, as in intent or search for remedy, then you cannot attend, and you have to then immediately delegate. And know that it is never to pursue in another person harm or death or ignoring of such. So in other words, always ask yourself, can I know what causes that pain in such way that I can offer that person immediate alleviation of such pain? And again, divide all negative emotions, all of them, as caused by suffering, adding to that suffering pain. Example of such. So remember, if you are correctional facility work or police, or a doctor, you cannot ignore a person in active pain, or you'll be persecuted, or even worse, so you will be feeling at fault and guilty. And if you lose that life or capacity in that person to regenerate such, it is lengthy, sometimes costly, and sometimes it requires a suffering of that person, and you will be feeling bad. And so that is why evaluate first own capacity to take in empathy at least a minimum action that will provide that person with what that person explicitly needs to stop suffering, and that excludes, if you're a professional, sex from self, excludes harm or causing suffering, and excludes death. And as a source of that pain, you need to know, you have to establish cause. And depending on what you do, if that is physical pain, you have to provide cure. If it's mental, you have to provide solution. And first, therefore, establish emotions in action, in speech, when you approach, are positive, negative, or neutral. Never guess. Every single second, never guess. As if the prior history was history watched in the movie. Do not guess, do not assume, do not approach with immediately asking, how are you today? Or in any way suggest that that person is sick, bad, or implying as such. Approach and ask simply, how do you do? Introduce yourself. And then if it is work and it is a work situation, or it is a stranger, establish your social role by introducing self properly, as well as establish your work. Social role I define as being in a given marital status, being of a specific gender, and being of a certain age. Those three. And then, because I'm talking about a person alone, and then you speak about your combination of skills and capacities, about your preparation degree and social role as a worker, presenting in social as well as in professional circumstances. Always do so. So introduce yourself, say good morning, and use corresponding to self, especially in jail when you try to re-socialize and evoke in that person's sense of social role. Use own title and address that person's evoking social role and profession according to that person's greatest liking and skills and capacity in enjoyment to pursue goodness. All persons want that, as we established that. To initiate resocialization. So introduce yourself as such. Good morning, my name is Officer Marina Jenkins. That's an example. I am here to get to know you. Would you mind introducing yourself? And then the person will say, hello. That is expected. My name is Mr. Howard Rogers. And then how do you do, sir? And inquire, now listen to me carefully. First, what do you do for a living? Person in jail, you ask after emotional evaluation, what do you do for a living? You start with that. And that person will tell you then, I am a painter, for instance. I am a musician. I am a social worker. I am a policeman. I am a licensed prostitute